Hey guys, Pete here. Going to follow up on my last Game of Thrones video about Bran and his purpose that was based off the history and lore clip The Children of the Forest versus the First Men. Today I'm going to talk about the tourney at Harrenhal clip, which didn't add as much, but did leave out one major bit that can provide some hype to the future seasons of Game of Thrones. This video is pretty light on spoilers, so I think everyone can watch, unless you're just not up with the story itself. Now, let's get into it. The history and lore series includes a retelling of the tourney at Harrenhal, which is narrated by Ellie Kendrick, who plays Meera Reed on the show. I won't go through the whole history of the tourney. I have an older video that explains all that led up to the event, and you can actually watch the whole history and lore clip on Watchers on the Wall's YouTube channel, since they had exclusive rights to release the video a few days ago. I'll put links in the description so you can learn more about the tourney that way. The main point is that this is one of the biggest events, if not the biggest events, that led to everything that's going on in Game of Thrones right now. In the Children versus the First Men clip, they added some interesting bits which I thought were big clues to how his story would go, but what's more interesting about this clip is what they've left out. Meera tells the story of her father Howland Reed attending the largest tourney Westeros had ever seen. In the book, she refers to him as a crannogman rather than using her father's name, but it's clearly implied, so that's no big shocker. She tells how he's beaten up by 3 squires who attack him, basically bully him because he's smaller and they don't feel like he belongs there. We also get some nice shots of the tourney area and Harrenhal itself, and we see the Went sigil with its 9 black bats hanging in the background. So anyways, Howland Reed is attacked by 3 squires, and then he's rescued by Lyanna Stark. She comes out with a tourney sword and chases the squires away, defending her father's man as the Reeds are sworn to House Stark. After the incident, she takes him back to her tent to care for his wounds, and he meets her 3 brothers there. Brandon, the wild one, Ned, the quiet one, and Benjen, the youngest one. The Starks tell him there's going to be a feast that night to celebrate the opening of the tournament, and he should be there with them. Lyanna says he's of high birth, and he has a right to sit there on the bench with all the other families, and he mentions that she's hard to say no to. At the feast, we see everything happen as it does in the books. We see Rhaegar playing his song and Lyanna crying because it's so beautiful, and we see that Robert, the future king, wins a drinking contest. Then we get a shot of Ashara Dane and that whole story, which is kind of exciting because the show's never really mentioned her, and it goes on to say that she danced with several notable people, including Sir Barristan Selmy, and that Brandon, the Wild Wolf, asked her to dance with Ned, who was too shy to do it himself. Then the Mad King shows up, and we know that this happens because Varys warned him that his son Rhaegar was holding the tournament, or was behind the tournament, to try to get the power together to possibly figure out getting rid of him because of his madness. We see him knight Sir Jaime to the Kingsguard, and then we see that Howland Reed and Lyanna see the 3 squires that attacked him earlier in that day. Benjen offers to give Howland, some armor and a horse so that he can take them on, but he realizes in the back of his mind that he has no chance against them. So we see him go, and he spends the night in Ned's tent, but before he goes, he prays to the old gods, which this clip doesn't really talk about it, but he had just spent quite a bit of time on the Isle of Faces before this tourney went down. So he looks in that direction and he prays to the old gods. The next day, the knights who squires had beat up Howland Reed advance in the tourney, and then towards the end of the day, a mystery knight appears. The knight has ill-fitting armor and is small in stature, and the only thing that we really know for sure is that they carried a shield that was painted with a white weirwood that had a laughing expression and the red leaves all around. It says the old gods brought strength to their arm, and they fell all 3 of the knights. When those knights came to ransom their horses and armor, the Knight of the Laughing Tree said with a booming voice that they needed to teach their squires honor, and that would be ransom enough. Now, some fans have taken this to be confirmation that the Knight of the Laughing Tree is actually Lyanna. Point I guess they're saying is that whenever she says teach your squires honor, there's an echo added to the recording, which we don't hear in other parts. I think it's pretty flimsy, although I don't really think there's much in the way of mystery about her, her being the Knight of the Laughing Tree. I know there's holes in the theory, and so don't go ahead and make a bunch of comments explaining why you think it doesn't add up. I'm well aware of those. I just don't think there's another good explanation for who it is. So yeah, Reddit sort of had a big contingency that was saying that this was confirmation without a doubt that Lyanna is the Knight of the Laughing Tree, but I think the evidence is flimsy there. So the common folk and everyone really enjoyed this, but the king, being crazy, got paranoid about who this actual mystery knight was. So here there's a slight change in the way it's described, and I think this is what is kind of interesting about the whole video clip. In the books, Robert brags that he'll beat the knight the next day, more or less. In the video clip, it describes it as Mad King Aerys telling him or asking him to do that same thing. But what's interesting is that they also directly, King Aerys asked his son Rhaegar to go out and find out who the mystery knight is. And this leads to all the speculation about him meeting Lyanna and then, what happens later whenever he names her the Queen of Love and Beauty. Instead of mentioning that Rhaegar went off to look for the Knight of the Laughing Tree, it just ends with Meera recounting asking her father about what else happened. It mentions Rhaegar here and how he won the tournament. I mean, they didn't change anything like that, but he doesn't want to talk about what happened, and he makes clear, or rather I should say, Meera makes clear that he never spoke about this incident again. So what I think is interesting here is that they purposely omitted the section where Rhaegar is the one who's supposed to go out and look for the identity, and that he was directly sent by his father, the king. I think this leads to us getting an idea that in the same way that the other clip kind of steered us in how we should be thinking about Bran, I think that this is obviously a big part of the entire story that they took out. And it's not like they don't mention Rhaegar like he doesn't exist. They just take out this one specific part, which leads me to believe that they're saving that for a flashback either in the next season or season 8. I mean, you guys tell me what you think, but why else did they take this out of here? We had one early trailer that was quite a while ago now that came out right after season 6. And there's another thing I remember about that where we did see the sigil of the bat, and some people at that time were talking about that this stuff that they were putting together had to have something to do with Harrenhal, since House Went doesn't come up in a lot of other things. But if we combine that with this, I think it pretty much gives us a good clue that we will see more through Bran about Rhaegar and Lyanna, and obviously how their relationship before the Tower of Joy played out. That's pretty exciting. I mean, we've been theorizing about it forever, and I think this would be really cool, and I think it's a very likely possibility at this point. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think they left it out on purpose? I mean, they had to, right? Do you think that means we're going to see this, like the meeting between them when he goes to find out who the knight is, or do you think it's just wishful thinking on my part? Let me know what you think in the comments about this and everything else, and what your favorite history and lore clips been so far. Don't forget, I'm having a giveaway, and all you have to do is subscribe and leave a comment on this or any other video where I mention the specific giveaway to enter. Once I reach 28,000 subscribers, I'll pick one comment from one of the videos and I'll send that person a copy of the 20th anniversary edition of A Game of Thrones. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.